Greetings. My name is Kaira Scarlet. It is a pleasure to meet you. We don't really know each other, but if you've managed to find this video, you're probably a lot like me. You probably play way too much Terraria. That or you're currently spiraling down a YouTube rabbit hole at 3 in the morning. But I digress. To date, I have an estimated 3,000 hours across 4 different versions of Terraria, and have been playing this gem of a game for over half a decade. I spent a lot of time honing my skills and knowledge, and sometimes I just crave a challenge to shake things up a little bit. Enter the Calamity Mod, one of, if not the biggest mods in the Terraria community. To my knowledge, the only mods that compete for that title are mods like the Fargo Soul Mod and Thoria Mod. I'll admit, I've never beaten Calamity without resorting to spawning things in before. The temptation to skip past the most grindy parts of hard mode using the Heroes mod, or any other adjacent mod, is simply too enticing, considering by that point, I typically want to just get on with the next game. That changes starting today. I've decided that I've had enough of taking the easy way out. I've decided that today is the start of a complete Calamity Mod playthrough. Now, if that were all I decided, I probably wouldn't be stressing over this as much as I currently am. But unfortunately, I kinda hate myself. You saw it in the intro and the title, so I won't beat around the bush any longer. This is going to be a Master Death Mode run. Will I suffer for my hubris? Well, we'll get to that later. For now, let's get on with the video. Upon loading up the world, I begin the typical survival sandbox starting ceremony of immediately destroying the beautiful, untouched nature around my spawn. If I want to avoid my most common mistake in any of my Terraria playthroughs, which is constantly dying in the first night, I need to make some shelter. It may be a shoebox, but it's my shoebox, and that's what matters. To ease the pain of keeping my chest organized, I have both the Magic Storage and Magic Storage Starter Bag mods installed. Trust me, this is just as much for your viewing pleasure as it is for keeping my otherwise inevitable chest monster under control. I hadn't thought of it while I was playing, but looking back at the recording, I really need to make sure I keep the world around me lit up. Just because I can navigate my way through the dark doesn't mean it makes for good footage. The gameplay in these early clips are a little rough around the edges. Not only did I get my audio balancing all wrong initially, but as of writing the script, which admittedly is still very early in the process of making this video, I'm still struggling to talk to people who won't respond back, as is the case when recording a video. On top of that, it also took me over an hour to realize I was recording at only 30 FPS. Terraria runs at 60 FPS. Can you see the problem here? Because I can. Of course, I died to the first enemy I fight, really showing those 3,000 hours I have put into this game. Hey! I finally noticed that I needed to wall in my shoebox. Remember folks, remember to place walls. I initially planned to return to the cave, but changed my mind and began exploring to my right. So I guess that's what I get for looking for OBS instead of my game. Unfortunately, I found the Crimson. Screw the Crimson. All my homies hate the Crimson. As I explore the Crimson, I am not only reminded that I hate the Crimson, but also that I am way too under-equipped to handle an evil biome at this point of the game. I am also reminded that spiders are just awful and should not exist. for the corruption! Stay back, you fiends! This time, I returned to the left side of the world, finding the desert. There's not much to say, other than that I really don't look like I've played this game for over a quarter of my life. I return to the cave. It's the only place I even feel safe, even as I am immediately attacked by two boulders. Thanks, Red. Oh. Remember that comment I made earlier about making a house so I don't spend the first night doing nothing but polluting the world with my graves? Yeah, I guess we decided to ignore the safety of the shoebox in exchange for struggling against souped-up zombies at night. That's right. I did. I continue to struggle with making the video actually watchable, and to kill zombies for a while as I collect fallen stars and try and make it into the cave again. I finally decided I had enough of the surface and began digging the renowned elevator. Past Kaira tried talking about how much they enjoyed Calamity buffing the mind speed for 50%, but failed to do so because their voice was being drowned out by the sound of the game that they did not balance the audio correctly for. This was the start of the second recording session, and I had rebalanced the audio slightly, leaving past Kaira a tad more audible. This was the beginning of over an hour of doing random small tests. Most of it was caving, like here where I returned to the scene of my first death and just began tunneling my way through the various pockets of the world before inevitably dying. You know, as I do. After respawning, I decided to expand my magic storage array and put a proper roof on my shoebox. I spent a lot more time in the caves this time and managed to reach reasonably far underground, even managing to look at the marble biome. After delving even further into the depths, I located a mushroom biome. Mushroom biome, always good. As is typical for Terraria, however, I quickly found myself murdered by a bat. Of course, that's what happens. That's what always happens. Back at the shoebox, I spent an inordinate amount of time looking through the crafting booth. I spent nearly 2 minutes just staring at the grid before finally deciding to just craft a golden helmet and an accessory, which I just decided to just put back in the storage system anyways. I don't recall what I intended to do initially. I was probably yearning for the mines again, but I instead pivoted and decided that it was time to explore the skies. I grabbed the 3 gravitation potions I had acquired thus far and descended to the heavens. The first stop was one of Drayden's labs. Boy, I love not having to worry about fall damage. I do not appreciate your compliance. I love the theme of the factories, or the abandoned labs. So chill. So peaceful. Lots of iron in there. War time. I think I will definitely take that. Oh, wait. Might want to do that. Not the bees! Not the bees! I decided to ascend again, instead exploring the right side of space rather than the left as I had done previously. I only found a single floating island, but as of writing the script, this is still the only place I can find harpies. These feathers are valuable in several recipes that I'll need to craft coming up. I also banished the guy here. Darn it. I used a teleportation potion and found myself in the Crimson. Not much has changed, but I do feel more prepared than I did last time I was here. It's probably a combination of being more warmed up than I was last time, and the fact that I was still extremely underestimated Master Death Mode at this time. Don't worry, my hubris will be paid for soon. Wow, I haven't even been out this far. Right. Upon exiting the Crimson Pit, I quickly located the dungeon. I decided to harvest some books and descended further to see if I could access any early dungeon loot. Unfortunately, the dungeon guardian decided to punish me for my hubris. See, I told you I'd be punished swiftly. I will. This will not be the last time I am punished like this. After stumbling my way through the crafting grid again, I craft myself some golden pants and resume doing whatever I feel like at the time and decide to try and explore the underground desert. Okay then. Go. We're trying. My trip was cut short by a rolling cactus, however. Probably should have thought that one through a bit more. It was around this point that I began to shift gears. Up until now, I had just been simply going through the motions and acquiring basic resources with no real end goal in sight. Now, though, was when I started to consult the Calamity Wiki to identify some weapons I should acquire and decide upon a weapon. The weapon that I sought out to grab was Veering Wind. It's not a terrible thing to craft, but it does need a frostbolt to craft, which requires me to go to the snow biome. Which with the early discovery of the dungeon, I already know which direction to head toward. Nice. In case you are unaware, the snow biome, the jungle biome, and the dungeon can all be used to identify the direction of the other two if you know the location of one of them. The snow biome will always spawn on the same side of the world as the dungeon, and opposite of the jungle. This applies in every possible orientation that you can flip this around, so pretty useful information. I chose a horrible time to set up for the required items, as I usually do. I was fighting tooth and nail against these zombies and face monsters, simply to get snow and ice block. After my inevitable demise, I started the process of crafting the Veering Wind, only to realize that I had yet to make the bookshelf needed to craft it. For some reason, probably because I did not want the bookshelf to look too out of place from the rest of my crafting stations, I refused to craft the Boreal bookshelf, and instead stepped outside to grab some regular wood. This also served the purpose of allowing me to silence the rowdy locals who were trying to talk to me about my car's extended warranty. Finally though, I was able to craft the frostbolt. I wanted to see if I could craft the veering wind before realizing I was short on stars and feathers. The stars would be easy, but it would take me roughly half an hour to gather the feathers I needed. I don't recall ever using the frost bolt at level before. I know I've crafted it for the upgraded version if you get in hard mode, but by that point there are other more interesting weapons that outshine the hard mode variant. I like this though. It'll add much. You know what? It's on par with the forest work. Well, looks like I'm ascending to heaven on a rope. Make that. Oh, just barely. After struggling with platforms and a bit of a janky rope extension, I just barely managed to return to the floating island to begin harvesting the local population. 2 deaths and a night of star catching later, and I return to the shoebox to finally craft the golden winds. I probably should have read the item description rather than just grabbing the easiest weapon to craft out of the Calamity Wiki class setup page, because this is not what I was expecting. I'm not complaining though. And at this point, I didn't even realize there was an alternate fire mode. I did make another frostbolt, however, as I enjoyed using that far too much, and the lack of range was something that really shown in later fights with this weapon. I've got some armor now and a few decent weapons. I think it's time to take on the Desert Scourge. After building up a very shoddy arena and calling the locals, I set myself up for probably the most comedic moment in this entire video. Okay then, time to probably die while fighting the Desert Scourge. Told you. And that's where I'll be wrapping things up for this episode. If you're interested in more, please consider liking and subscribing so that you'll be notified of the next video, where I lose my mind trying to reconcile the belief that I am good at this game, and the reality that I can't beat the Desert Scourge until King Slime, two of the easiest bosses in this entire mod. Until then, farewell.